It's always just between us, all right?
Welcome into Between Us at 938 Live. I'm Angela Lim. Great to have you with us today. And of course, we have an inspiring story for you today as well from 19-year-old Kishen, who entered Boys Town at 13 years old when his newly divorced mother was struggling to support them and could barely make ends meet. At the time, he kept many of his personal issues to himself and even had a little bit of difficulty with schoolwork. But since then, things have really changed with the help of social workers and a volunteer tuition program as part of Boys Town. Not only are Kishen's grades improving, he's also discovered a passion for music, playing the drums in a local band, and is also going to publish a book of poems. We're going to hear more about Kishen's story in just a bit. Also joining him is counsellor at Boys Town, Celine Chang, who's going to share her experiences as well. Celine, Kishen, so great to have both of you here.
Hello.
Hi, Angela.
Let's start a little bit with Kishen first, because you have quite a story. Tell us a bit about the time when you were younger, probably about 8 when your parents got divorced, was it?
Yeah, I was about 8 when my parents had divorced. My mum left home, so I decided to stay with my dad because I was closer to him. So at that point of time, I was really confused. I was very angry. I had a lot of pent-up frustrations. So when my parents stopped talking to each other and I didn't see my mum as much, I got more angry. I became a very rebellious teen. So when I was about 10, my dad passed away. So it became even more difficult for me. I became angrier towards myself because to me it was my fault that he passed away.
At the time you were living with your father, right?
Yes, I was living with my dad. So I was supposed to move back in with my mum at the age of 10. I said no. I wanted to stay with my grandma because I had a lot of emotional problems with my mum at that point in time. But when I was 12, everyone felt it was for my best interest to be with my mum. So I moved back in with my mum, and it wasn't her fault. She was really working crazy hours. So she would work from 8 to 5, and then she would carry on 5 to 9 giving private tuitions and coming home very late at night. So at that point of time, she felt that she needed someone to watch over me because I was very mischievous, as you would say, and I had a lot of anger issues. So she heard about Boys Town through a church friend, and she sent me over to the home, which is a residential home at Bukit Timah. So I went in there, and the first week was the hardest week I had. I hated everyone there. I hated my mom. I hated everyone. I hated myself even. But as I started staying on longer, I just started getting more into the vibe. I started talking to more boys, and they told me their problems while I told them mine, and in that way we sort of built like a brotherhood between each other.
It sounds like, at the start, especially when you were going in, it sounds like a very confusing time because, from when your mom was making you go into the Boys Town, was it something that you were willingly going to go for, or did you actually resist it?
I protested a lot. I got into a huge fight with my mom the night before I went into Boys Town, and I was very angry. I wanted to run away from home. I was just very depressed at that point in time, and when I went in to Boys Town, I was very reserved to myself. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I hated everyone.
Tell us a bit about the time, that relationship with your mom before you went into Boys Town, because, you mentioned that she was at work quite a lot. So did you feel that you had a lot of time in the day to spend by yourself while you were in school? What was that like for you?
I think I kind of mixed around with a lot of the wrong company, I would say, because I had no support whatsoever. I had no father figure, and my mom was very busy with work, so I couldn't get her support as well. So I had a lot of free time, as you would put it, and I would hang out, play soccer, and hang out with a lot of older guys who would teach me how to do weird stuff, like stay up late at night, get home at only about 11 or 12. So it was a very difficult period of my life at that point.
And you were about 12 years old at that time, roughly?
Yeah, I was about 12.
Yeah, so that was really young to be staying out late and everything. And what was the relationship like between you and your mom at that time?
I would say it was very volatile. It was a ticking time bomb. Because if she was to tell me something, I would immediately get offended and shout back at her. And it could be a simple thing like, can you go and wash the dishes? And I would just shout back and walk off.
Right.
So I was very, very temperamental at that age.
Right, Celine, let's get to you a little bit, because when Kishen mentioned he just got into Boys Town, it was a very angry period of time for him. There's a lot of resistance. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to talk to anyone. Is that normal for a lot of the people who do start going out there in the first place?
Yes, that is absolutely normal. There was this boy whom I used to work with who had a lot of anger in him. When he first came, he was very hostile and resistant towards help. I mean, he would even pass sarcastic remarks towards the staff whenever he was unhappy. But however, we persevered with him, and the perseverance, of course, paid off.
What is the situation, for most of the boys? I mean, Kishen has mentioned that he eventually shared their stories, and he also kind of confided in them as well. Are the backgrounds pretty similar in terms of, having parents who can't emotionally and financially provide for the children?
Yes, actually his background is very similar for a lot of our boys. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more as well about, what things have been like for you, Celine, being a counselor to a lot of these boys. What are the common issues that tend to come up? And also a little bit more about Kishen and how he's found, not just a lot of friends, but also a newfound passion for music and even writing poetry. You're going to hear a bit more about that in just a bit. My two guests today, 19-year-old Kishen and Celine Chang, who's a counselor with Boys Town. This conversation continues in just a bit. Stay tuned.
Our soulful encounter is always just between us on 938 Live. Our soulful encounter is always just between us on 938 Live.
Talking to my two guests today about Boys Town and their experiences in it. Kishen, as well as counselor Celine Chang, is here to share their stories. Now, Kishen, earlier you were telling us a bit about how turbulent it was for you in your younger years before you went into Boys Town at age 13. Tell us a bit about schooling. What was that like for you? Did you enjoy school, or was it something that you really dreaded like a lot of kids?
I was studying in Assumption English. So Assumption English is just a few steps below Boys Town because we're all in the same compound. So when I started schooling, that first week, school was heaven. I have never been in love with school before because I was always trying to escape from Boys Town. So in the initial stage, of course. And after a while, I was having problems coping with school because of the years in primary school where I had run away from classes to play soccer and stuff. So when I went to secondary school, I couldn't do that. I couldn't run away. So I was having problem coping with mathematics, especially. So as the years went by, a few months went on, and Boys Town started introducing this tuition program. So they would, every evening, tuition teachers would come down and volunteer their time just to teach us.
Wow.
And I think looking at them sacrificing their time to come and teach us gave me more motivation to study. So from failing mathematics all the way, when I did my N-levels, I got a B3, which was amazing for me.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, considering that in that short time, I mean, also, I think the motivation is something that really changed it for you. The idea that you felt that, hey, someone cared enough to come down to give me some of their free time as well to help you improve. Were there other things you really liked about going to school? Tell us a bit about the friendships that you formed with the other boys in Boys Town.
I think because once you stay in Boys Town, you're naturally in a brotherhood. So, whenever you go to school, you had this big clique of friends who are Boys Town boys, and you were all very close together. We would play soccer together. We would, go down and get drinks together in the canteen. Do not get the wrong idea.
Yes, just to clarify.
So we would go down to the canteen and get a few drinks for ourselves. We would play soccer, basketball, and I cannot play basketball at all, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes. So we would play soccer, basketball, and just chill out together, and we became really, really bonded. In a sense, because you're living with each other, you see each other 24/7. So you form this friendship that I don't think money can buy or you will ever find in other places.
Right, apart from physical proximity, there's also the idea that a lot of you have common backgrounds. So, while it might be hard for you to kind of open up to someone who might come from a totally different situation, you had others like you, brothers, as you put them, just like you, who understand where you're coming from. So, did you have any really good friends? Tell us about some of the experiences those people had as well.
I am actually with my younger brother, my real brother, was in Boys Town as well. So when he came into Boys Town, I became very protective. Wanted to be that good big brother, and then we formed our own little clique where because all of us were in the music club, so we all would jam together and make music together. So we had our own clique, and I have this very good friend. His name is Tristan Tan. Yeah, he's now in Australia. So yes, we were very, very close. We were so close that my mum actually so-called adopted him. So, and she loves him more than us.
Oh,
life.
Don't say that. But it does sound like a very close bond, like you mentioned, because all of you have gone through pretty much the same situation, and of course, being with each other all the time, you definitely would create a great bond.
I would, sorry for cutting you, but I would say some of them actually go through harder situations than mine. So when you know that, then you start feeling like I shouldn't be sorry for myself. I should actually be more motivated. And that's how we actually went through and helped each other throughout our lives there.
Right. In a way, all of you were there for each other in that sense. And, it doesn't feel so lonely sometimes when you have other people who, like you say, might have gone through something a lot more challenging for you. Celine, was that really the case? I mean, the boys coming together, supporting each other. How did that really work out in terms of, counselors coming in as well? What was that like?
Yes, the boys, they support each other because a lot of them, they come from very similar background. And as a counselor, I'm actually very supportive of such brotherhood as mentioned by Kishen. So that is actually very important for during their stay in Boys Town, because it helps them to move along, to adapt and adjust to the new environment.
We're going to talk a bit as well about certain issues that the boys might face. I mean, Kishen mentioned that when he first came into Boys Town, he was quite depressed. He felt very low and had a lot of anger in him. These among many other issues that might come up that, as a counsellor, Celine, you might have to encounter. We'll talk a bit about that. Also, a little bit more about how Kishen's found a passion for music. He's now drumming in a local band and also is going to be publishing a book coming up in just a bit. We're going to hear more from my two guests today, Kishen as well as Celine Chang, who's a counsellor with Boys Town. Stay tuned.
Someone to tell it to is a fundamental human need, and what you say stays between us on 938 Live. It's always just between us, all right?
Chatting today with Kishen, who entered Boys Town when he was just 13 years old, and also a counsellor from Boys Town, Celine Chang, sharing their experiences. Now, Kishen, tell us a bit about how your relationship is now with your mom. I mean, you mentioned before you went into Boys Town, you both had a very volatile relationship, in your words, and you were very angry and depressed at that time. Have things changed?
I think they changed a lot. Like nowadays, my mom and I have a very mature adult relationship. So it's more of she trusts me with stuff that I do, as well as she leaves me to do what I have to do, and she knows that I have my responsibilities and that I know how to prioritize my time. So it's much better.
What do you think has changed? Was it because you had access to counsellors in Boys Town, or that sometimes it's just that interacting with other boys and realizing that their situation's also very, very difficult as well? You appreciated your mom more?
I think it's because I grew a beard. No, but it's mostly because I've seen a lot of boys, and some of them lost their mom, So once you start seeing that, and a lot of them, they get very emotional about it, but they still continue living their lives and trying to do better for themselves. So looking at that, and then I still have my mom, and that sparked me to start thinking. And I started looking at how hard my mom was working and how difficult her life was, and it made me value her even more.
How important are the families, Celine, in the whole process of getting the boys to become more stable and more happy within the Boys Town? Are families often involved in your work?
Yes, very much. We not only need to actively engage the youths, we would also need to engage the families, especially the parents. It's very good that Kishen's mom, is very understanding and supportive of him. Therefore, some of the common issues that we face when working with boys and their families are issues like avoidance, denial, and resistance. One other particular challenge that we regularly encounter is the lack of support and understanding from the families. This lack of understanding and support can contradict the boundaries and the work that we do with them. For example, when the boys go for their home leave during the weekend and over the school holidays, when they have curfew imposed on them by Boys Town, we actually do have parents who actually collaborated with them to violate the curfew.
Wow.
So this shows that we need to actively engage the families, especially the parents.
Because either way, you don't want anything to impede the progress. When the parents are on board as well, it makes it so much easier for you guys to work everything out. When we talk about a lot of the emotional issues that come up, I think the idea of giving them an avenue to express their passion or their interest is really important. Kishen, tell us about music, how you got introduced to the drums, what you love about it.
I was born playing music. No, I was in Boys Town, and I've always loved music, but I was never proficient in an instrument. I could never play an instrument. So this supervisor in Boys Town, Mr. Chris Gomez, I still keep in touch with him nowadays. But he actually introduced us to this music club, and he's a musician. He plays the bass. So he tried entertaining us and trying to teach us how to play certain instruments. And I was supposed to play the guitar at first. I failed miserably. Then I was supposed to play the bass. He was trying to teach me with all his might, and I couldn't do it. And then one day I just saw someone playing the drums, and it seemed natural to me. I thought, this is easy.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah.
It's your thing. You found your calling.
I
so
just
to
like
speak.
banging weird skins.
It felt therapeutic, was it for you? I mean, we talked about this off air as well, that, for you, drums is an avenue for you to channel your emotions.
Yeah, when because like I said, I was very reserved when I went to Boys Town, and I didn't really attack the problem when I was in Boys Town in the first year. I was more trying to just push it away and try to occupy myself with different stuff. But as I learned how to play drums, I found it very therapeutical, in a sense where I just started playing non-stop. And I would spend 6 to 7 hours a day just playing drums.
Wow.
And I would go in really angry, and I would come out feeling really like there's a burden off my shoulders. And I just kept doing it ever since then.
You play in a local band now, I understand.
I play for 2 bands now.
Interesting.
A metal band called Arcadeath and a punk band called Some Kinda Hate.
Sounds good. We're also going to talk a bit more about poetry and how you're going to publish a book in just a bit. So, Leon, tell us a bit about the importance of having these alternative activities on top of the schooling and the tuition that the boys are given in Boys Town. How important is it that there are avenues for them to channel a lot of their emotions, a lot of their potential for talent?
We will find out what are the boys' strengths and interests, and we'll put them on programs that will develop these strengths and interests. We also put them on leadership development programs to develop their leadership. So these programs are particularly helpful in making them grow. Yeah.
You also took up some leadership roles, right, Kishen, when you were in Boys Town. How has that shaped your leadership potential?
I became sexier. Boys Town had a lot of different programs for us to take part in. So like every activity that you do, for example, games, studying, laundry, etc., you would have an IC, and I would always jump at the opportunity to get it, because I was, like I said, trying to push all my problems to one side and just focus on doing stuff like that. So they even sent me to Outward Bound Sabah, and over there, although I got my blood sucked off from leeches, but I actually learned a lot, and I learned how to control the boys, as they say, and try to give them instructions, but not sound like a boss and not be very controlling, but more of to just help them and show them that I'm their friend and I'm doing this with them.
It really helps you grow emotionally as a person, especially for boys, who have very turbulent childhoods. It's so great to have that confidence and self-esteem that's being built from giving leadership opportunities as well. We're going to hear a bit about Kishen's future dreams, his goals for the future, as well as a little bit more about a book of poetry is supposed to be publishing just at the end of this year. We're going to hear more from my two guests today, Kishen, as well as counsellor with Boys Town, Celine Chang. Stay tuned.
Our soulful encounter is always just between us on 938 Live. Our soulful encounter is always just between us on 938 Live.
Thanks for staying tuned.
That's it. So they need to talk. They need to.
Today, Kishen, who entered Boys Town at age 13, and also Celine Chang, who is a counsellor with Boys Town. Kishen, you have big dreams. Tell us a bit about what you plan for the future on top of being a musician and a published author. What else is in store for Kishen?
I want to be a rock star. Now, recently I just started a little freelance bar events management team with a couple of my friends. So it's Gypsy Gypsy, and what we do is we do private events. Like if you have a party at home, and we would go down and do bar for you and plan your whole event for you. As well as I'm writing a poetry book, and that's another way of therapy for me.
Yeah.
I try to use that to get the demons of to get that out.
What are the poems about?
A lot of them, I actually kind of categorize them in a few segments. So like, I have these very dark thoughts about death and stuff like that. So I write a lot about that. As well as a lot of romantic stuff, those mushy stuff that's more for girls, and some stuff that I had of memories as a kid. So I wrote a lot of that, and it's more just to get my feelings out.
When you talk about, channeling your emotions through all these various avenues, I mean, music's one of them, poetry is another. What are these? How has that changed you as a person, you think?
I think music, of course, has the main change in me. I grew up listening to music. I've always wanted to play music, and now that once I started playing music, I became more disciplined. I started structuring my time properly. I started focusing my energy on doing better stuff rather than just hanging around and being a lazy bum.
All right. So what are you looking forward to doing now? I mean, on top of these things, I hear you want to be on radio. Is that
Yeah,
something?
I want to take over you.
This might be the start of the rest of your career. Well,
Thank you.
look out, everyone else who's on the airways. We're going to talk a little bit to Celine now. Tell us a bit about, in your capacity as a counselor, I mean, looking at Kishen's transformation from coming in really angry, really lonely with a very, very turbulent family environment to the person he is today, you know, with so many dreams, a lot of talent and a lot of potential. What do you think, you know, people should know about Boys Town that sometimes there might be misconceptions about?
Boys Town is an institution that provides residential care and street outreach to youths in need. Youths in need referring to boys and girls from disadvantaged and disengaged families. However, boys from under our care are usually perceived as troublemakers. They are more often than not singled out, scapegoated, stigmatized and pathologized. Sometimes we also need to take a look at what's happening in their families. We need to not only work with the youth himself, but also to work with their parents to find out their struggles and problems that they are facing.
And of course, Kishen, having benefited from all this, you know, that Boys Town believes in and is trying to do for you guys, what would you like to say to other young people out there, much like yourself, who might be going through a really hard time, or, you know, to parents who struggle with understanding their own children sometimes? What would you say to that?
I would tell parents that nowadays the generation of kids are very different, you know, compared to the older generation. So nowadays kids, they want attention, they crave attention, and you have to give them attention. You can't just shout them, scold them, try to discipline them. It's more of just talking to them and being friends with them. I think that's what kids nowadays just really want. And for the kids nowadays who are out there lost and was somewhat like me when I was younger, I think the most important thing you need to realize is that you have it very well off. There are a lot of people out there that are suffering, and a lot of them that I've known personally in Boys Town. And a lot of them are suffering and they still work very hard and to just achieve what they have today. So, you know, there's no point creating quarrels with your parents. Rather just try to find a passion in life and try to work towards that. Try to be more determined.
And of course, you're a living testament to that, and Thinder as well, whether it's volunteer opportunities, as part of the tuition program. You can find all that out on the Boys Town website. It's www.boystown.org.sg. That's www.boystown.org.sg. Celine, Kishen, it's so great to have both of you here today.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you so much.
This has been Between Us at 938 Live. I'm Angela Lim. Thank you for tuning in.
Someone to tell it to is a fundamental human need, and what you say stays between us on 938 Live.